If you are a super direct person, you don't like to hear all the fluff, you just want people to get to the point. Today's episode is for you. We are talking all about type 8s, and guess what? I am also a type 8, so I am really looking forward to diving in. Welcome to the EnneaReal Podcast, Women, Moms, Real Estate, and the Enneagram. I'm your host, Melody Wilson, a certified Enneagram and real estate coach. If you're a high-achieving realtor mom looking to find balance and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. In this podcast, we explore the intersection of women, real estate, and the Enneagram. Join me as I provide Enneagram insights and practical tools tailored specifically for women in the real estate industry. Together, we'll uncover strategies to navigate the unique challenges and opportunities and find harmony in all areas of your life. So, type 8s. We are known as the challengers. We are known as so many different things. We're very direct people. And the thing is, here are some core qualities. Now, if you haven't watched or listened to any of my podcasts before, we go through the Enneagram University's guide, and I give you my feedback on what it looks like in the realtor world. I am certified by the Enneagram University, so that's why I'm using that. But there's so many resources that you can check out. If you haven't already gone to my Instagram at Melody_Wilson, you will see a lot of things there that talk about the Enneagram. And yesterday's post talked about type 8s, and that is what we are going to talk about today. Type 8s, I feel, of the 9 types is the most misunderstood number. I might just say that because I am a type 8, and I do feel like until I understood the Enneagram, I actually always felt misunderstood. I always felt like I was too much. I always felt like I had to figure out a way to calm myself down, or why do I have so much energy all the time? And even when I have low energy or I don't take on as much, quote unquote, I'm still miles ahead of everyone around me. So it's interesting because as I learned about the Enneagram in my self awareness journey, it really helped me understand who I am and made a lot of sense about other things that I've encountered in the past. So let's start off with core qualities. A type 8's core qualities, the core fear is actually being controlled, weak, manipulated. Now, there's an element of injustice, and I feel like I don't relate to it as much as definitely I don't like to be controlled. When you first hear that, I remember thinking, well, I don't necessarily need to be in control all the time. But when I was really honest with myself and realized what has gotten me to where I was, then I realized that the control aspect definitely is the reason why I had issues with people around me or circumstances. So it's interesting and important for you to understand that. Now, with the core desire to be in control and strong and powerful in order to protect themselves. The core desire and core fear are always correlated, as I'm sure you've noticed now. And it's interesting because, of course, our desire is to be strong and to protect ourselves. But I think that they also are seen as protectors, period. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're a mom, you can understand and relate, like the mama bear instinct. So obviously, some of us have that mama bear instinct. A lot of us moms do. It's natural, but it's a whole nother element and layer because as a type 8, that is something you're just naturally inclined to. You're just always in your gut, always trying to protect those around you. You're trying to protect your family, but yes, you're trying to protect yourself. So a lot of type 8s usually have a wall built up around them because they're trying to actually protect their heart from being stepped on or being taken advantage of. I'm speaking of personal experience because until I understood that's what I was doing, I wasn't able to access that friendship level or relationship level or even self-awareness level to understand, what does that actually look like? Now, my biggest core weakness is it says here, now they use the word lust. And I know that it has a lot of different correlations. And so when I first saw it, I did not relate because I'm like, what are you talking about? But when you read a little bit more, it says the desire and pursuit of more intensity, influence, and power. That does strike right in the gut. And I say this because I am a person that needs a lot, needs to do a lot, needs to be a lot. and likes to know what's going on. I can read a room, and because I'm trying to figure out what's happening and who's doing what and who's trying to accomplish what. I'm trying to get through any BS. I'm trying to just figure out what is actually happening. So definitely there is that as a weakness, but it is also something that is a secret superpower, because not everyone can see beyond all of those things. Now, the core message that type 8s need to hear is you will not be betrayed. This is something as a type 8 that definitely is, it's a very strong point. In the past, in business relationships, in real estate teams, in friendships, betrayal was an absolute deal breaker for me, to the point of I don't even know. Like, obviously, nobody likes betrayal, but it hits type 8s in a whole other way than other types. And I don't know how to put words to this feeling, but it is deep, deep, deep within. And that betrayal, when that happens, it's very difficult to come out of. Now, what I do realize is that when the type 8s experience that, their trust level for that person is going to be very, very, very non existent. And I can tell you that it is possible to regain some sort of friendship once someone's betrayed you. However, it's never going to be the same. And even though you think that someone's betraying you as a type 8, they may not be betraying you. You're viewing it in the lens that someone is actually betraying you. And that's something I learned, and I was glad I was aware that that's why I was feeling the feelings I felt, because when I realized that this my assistant, for example, was moving on to go for schooling. This is not a personal attack. This is not a betrayal, but it felt like one to me. And so I had to work through those emotions and understand that that's not what was happening, but it's how I felt. Because I'm an all in person. I don't understand how you can change, because like what your focus is, because I'm just like, I'm a ride or die person, right? So it gets very intense. If I'm, your ride or die, I will do anything. I will drop everything and anything to help you out. So as a type 8, that's a really good quality when you are helping your clients, because they know that you're there to protect them. You're not going to let them buy a house they shouldn't buy. You're not going to let negotiations take advantage of them when they're selling their house. They know that you're doing everything in your power to get their house sold and to do the best that you possibly can do. So these are superpowers that you naturally have that will make your selling in real estate really good. Now, in this series, we've been talking about YouTube and how does this work when it comes to YouTube world. So when you are somebody who likes to be in control, likes to protect themselves, likes to protect their friends or clients and whatnot, you can use your natural wirings to want to protect them by thinking about content that you want to put out on YouTube. Content is a big struggle for a lot of agents before they start their YouTube channel, because they're trying to sort out, what do I talk about? Who wants to hear from me? What should I say? What value do I bring? Well, think about this in your head. If you are trying to protect your clients, what kind of content do you want? Now, type 8s tend to be more educators. However, there's entertainers also, because we're going to talk about this in a minute here. Type 8s have wings, and the 7 wing is an entertainer type of wing and more friendly and more out there. But you can use your core qualities and your desire to use to funnel in your strengths for building out content, building out strategy, because you naturally are going to want to figure out, how do I reach the most amount of people to influence the most amount of people with my subscriber strategy. Now, here's a spoiler alert for you as a coach. You don't need 10,000 subscribers to influence anybody. You don't need 5,000 even. If you even have 1,000, that's when we started to see business and clients contact us to get them to have us help them purchase a home, sell a home. You are putting your vibe out there. So that's another way you can use your natural wirings, is when you are on video and you're talking and communicating to the camera. Just think, You talk all the time. The camera doesn't need to be some weird interface. Just imagine talking to somebody else on the other side of the camera. Put your personality, which is naturally what people are attracted to. You will attract the people that appreciate what you have to offer, right? So you don't need to worry about that. And here's another strength for a type 8. Type 8s don't really care what other people think. So don't worry about the haters and the whatnot. And I know you won't anyways. Honestly, sometimes I just delete comments because I just don't have tolerance for it. I understand sometimes it's engagement, but sometimes when it's really negative, I have absolutely no desire to entertain it. So that's some of the ways that you can use for YouTube. And we'll continue talking about how you can use some of your other strengths towards YouTube. But let's just dive into strengths and struggles of a type 8. So in this guide, it says that the strengths are they are assertive, passionate, determined, and natural leaders who will like to be in charge. They are strong willed, self assured, and exude confidence that many other types dream of. They are decisive, determined, honest, straightforward communicators, and are not afraid to go against the grain for what they believe in. They are deeply protective of the people and missions they believe in and will fight to guard and defend them. So I totally resonate with this. I also think that it's important for you to understand if you are looking at joining a team, it may be very difficult for you to join a team because you're going to be the one that has more influence and be in charge. However, that being said, type 8s will follow a leader if they feel like they can trust them and if they are competent and they feel like they're worthy of it. So I think that's important that if you are a very strong personality, to make sure that you're following somebody who also has that um, quality. Now, if you are joining a team and that other leader is a type 8, this is something you definitely need to sit down and talk to them about. And also for yourself in your self awareness journey, is this the right fit for you? I have worked with other type 8s before. And it's not always a bad thing, especially when there's a mutual understanding. And especially if you're able to help each other out, you have actually a lot of respect for that person because you guys think the same way. And so a lot of people think type 8s, because we're challengers, we're just butt heads because they know that we're strong willed. But when two type 8s get together, one of my closest friends is a type 8. We know how each other works. We know actually how misunderstood we can be, and we can empathize in a whole different way than anybody can outside of our number. So I think it's important to understand that before you jump into any sort of real estate relationship. If you're looking at doing something on YouTube together with somebody, make sure you understand that type 8s want to be in charge. And so if there's not an ability for you to be in charge, you may struggle with that eventually. So some of the other struggles are they're focused on their mission, often dismissing the desires and voices of others in their pursuit of their goals. So, this is something you have to keep in mind. And I remember in my unhealthy state, and sometimes I get into that state even now, is I disregard because I don't care what other people think. I just disregard things and I just plow forward because I want to hit this goal. This is such a dangerous attribute of a type 8 for your personal well being. When I had started a team years ago, I didn't know these things about myself. And I just thought, hey, I've got to make a living for my family. I'm the primary breadwinner. I need to just go. And if these people aren't going to do what I need to do, I'm just going to keep on going. And whatever, if they fall off, well, not a good idea. It also burns you out emotionally because though people may think that type 8s don't have much emotion, we have a lot. We just have it protected. We're guarded because we don't want to actually get hurt. So, because of our direct communication style, they're often interpreted as mean, harsh, aggressive, bulldozing, and intimidating. And this is interesting to note because not all types have this differentiating factor when it comes to male or female, but type 8 females are the most misunderstood, misanalyzed. Is that the right word? They're not taken the right way. The same attributes of a male with these type 8 qualities in a workplace is seen as someone who is a corporate hero. But a woman who has the same attributes, they have a different name for that. And it's one in which I don't agree with, but it is how I have been misunderstood. And it's how I was put in a position, though I don't quote unquote care what other people think, I do. And so when everyone's telling you or talking behind your back about how rude and horrible this person is, doesn't make you feel good. I mean, it doesn't make anybody feel good. But I'm seeing beyond emotions and I'm pushing towards the goal. I'm pushing towards taking emotions out of things. So in a real estate deal, that's actually really helpful because clients get very clouded with emotion. They need an agent that's able to see beyond the emotion to get them the end goal. Because at the end of the day, they're spending X amount of money, they're moving into that home, they have to live with that decision. So if you put them and help them make decisions, not totally emotion free, but not only emotional, it's actually going to help you in the long run. So I think that's really important to understand is that there is that difference. So if you as a mom, realtor are going, oh, that's why people think of me this way sometimes. And now let's be honest here, type 8s. We all can work on softening our edges a little bit because though we don't care and though we know we're hardwired that way, it doesn't mean it's an excuse for you to just bulldoze and intimidate. So they also refuse to be controlled and can therefore struggle when they're not the leader. So that's why I had mentioned that earlier. They can be impatient and frustrated with others who aren't as self assured or bold. So that's why, also, if you align yourself with a teammate, with a partner, with a team lead who you feel isn't strong, who isn't experienced, who isn't confident in themselves, you may struggle with that and you could be quite frustrated. I'm sure I speak to all type 8s when you say we probably are frustrated with people, actually quite a bit because they're not like us. And the impatience can actually be a strength when it comes to, for example, listing your home. You don't want somebody that's patiently waiting to sell your house. You want to sell your house right away. So you want someone that's impatient. And what are they going to do? So they've also got their own moral code and will do what they think is right, even if it's against social norms or expectations. We are very convicted people and will stand up for what we believe in. And so I think that's really important. And there's high convictions, high convictions. Now, we talked earlier about the wings. So just to refresh you, if you don't remember, the Enneagram is a circle diagram starting at 1 all the way to 9. And the wings are the numbers to the left and the right of you. So with the Enneagram 8, the wing types are 7 and 9. So this is interesting because the 9s, if you listen to that episode, they're definitely more the peacemakers, and you've got the challengers, there's the 8s, and how could they even be related? But I do see these things come out, even in myself as I do more awareness. You have access and the ability to access these things. And the cool thing about the Enneagram is, though there's 9 different types, there's so many intertwined ways that our types are related to other types. That's why it's really important not just to figure out what your specific type is, but to understand all of them so that you know when you go to stress, you move to this negative traits of that number. If you are in growth mode, you move to positive traits of that number, which we'll talk about in a second here. But also with the wings. And also there's relational triads. There's a whole bunch of different triads that we haven't even talked about, and we will in the next different episodes that are coming up here because the series is almost done, and we're going to start another series on the 9 types where we're going to really deep dive into the Enneagram. If you have specific things you want to hear about the Enneagram for the next series, I want to hear from you. So send me a DM on Instagram and we'd be happy to incorporate that into our plan. So the type 8 with the 7 wing, they're more extroverted, energetic, passionate, fun-loving, interested in power, quick-witted, materialistic, and egocentric. Now, that is a whole lot because I don't feel like I'm egocentric, but guess what? When you look from the outside, definitely that confidence can be perceived as egocentric. And a true type 8 that is authentically in growth is humble and is able to see past that kind of comment. But I'm just telling you, sometimes when you read these things and they rub you the wrong way, it could be that it's accurate. Now, 8 wing 9 is more mild-mannered, moderate, gentle, open, people-oriented, enjoying their comforts, and they're quietly strong. They're not as verbal, and they are still verbal, but they're not as verbal as an 8 with a 7 wings. 7 wings bring out that entertainer and energizer. This being said, type 8s are the highest energy types of all 9 types. So even though you're an 8 with a 9 wing, you're still going to have a whole lot more energy than a 9 or a 2 or a 6 or a 5, right? So it's important to understand that. And as we dive into the Enneagram further, you'll be able to understand, oh, I can see myself maybe I do have some attributes of the 7 or the 9, and just really hashing out if that's something that are you a 7-8 or an 8-7. And we'll talk about that in more of our Instagram posts as well, and we can kind of dive into that. So I told you about triads earlier, and we've talked about this before. The center of intelligence is how you process and make decisions, and each type does it differently. Each type fits into one of the triads, which is a grouping of 3. And the type 8s, no surprise, we belong to the gut body center. So there's the heart, there's the mind, and then there's the gut body. So the common focus of the center of intelligence with the gut body is control, justice, and fairness. And the common desire is autonomy and independence. Aggression, they have issues with aggression or repression, and their emotional struggle is anger or rage. Now, in the gut body triad is the 8, 9, and 1. So all 3 types have this. We struggle with anger. Anger for a type 8 is right on the surface, ready to go. And sometimes we forget we have other emotions. Anger is the first go-to emotion. So that's a telltale sign of an 8. I used to think I was the 3 when I first was trying to discover. There's a lot of similarities between a 3 and an 8, but 3s do not have anger at their forefront. 3s are actually in the heart triad or the heart center of intelligence. And so there is more feelings. However, they're in the repressed zone. So 3s, 6s, and 9s have the repressed. So repressed meaning they've pushed down that. So they're not necessarily aware of it. So the type 9 in the gut body center, though anger isn't, they've got it repressed. It does come out, but it is repressed. And the 1 doesn't react to they have anger, but they know it's bad. So then they try to not deal with it because they know anger isn't right. But back to the 8s, 8s are quickly aware of what is right based on their gut instincts. And I say this all the time. Oh, my gut's telling me something. I've always got these spidey senses of, I think this deal is going to go sideways. I think we need to do something. So there's definitely something that's really important there. It's a strength. Don't ignore your gut if you're a type 8. And how do you use this for YouTube, right? Because you're like, how does the gut have anything to do with YouTube? I'm telling you, it may not have anything to do with your content, but it has everything to do with your sales ability and being able to take care of your clients. And so if you're able to communicate your personality and your care and your protective measures through YouTube, through your messaging, it is going to help your business because people will see that in you. You don't need to tell them. And that's something that's really important with type 8s. We don't care what people think. And so you need to say things that don't need to be said. So here's the other thing though. Type 8s are very, like I said, protective, but the vulnerability, that's a big word for type 8s. And I talked in here about how do you balance assertiveness with a vulnerability to create connections. So with YouTube, you have a screen. You don't know who you're talking to, but you should really figure out what your niche is and talk to that niche specifically. And that's a whole nother episode. Actually, you can even take a look on our tips and tricks on our Instagram. But who are you talking to, and what kind of vulnerability needs to be shown so that you can show them that you're vulnerable, that you can relate to them. You are assertive. And so if you put the 2 together, people will really relate to you, because if you're honest with them about what has happened in your life, what's really happened, because we put on this front, especially as realtors, that we got everything put together. But if you're honest with people, for example, I have opened up before about my past struggle with post-adoption depression. People go, oh, you struggled with that? 100% I struggled with it. I've had burnout as a realtor as well, and I've learned through it. That's also being vulnerable. So if I'm being vulnerable with you and you're listening and you're going, oh, I totally relate. I've had this before. I can't believe someone like her, who seems to have it all put together, has gone through these things. This is an important lesson for you to learn as a type 8. If you're in an unhealthy space, you probably don't realize that there's many other people out there that are struggling the same way. And because you share some of your past struggles or current struggles does not mean that you are not strong, does not mean that you are not in control. You need to learn you can control your own emotions. But don't forget to be that vulnerable person to the people around you, because it has to be appropriate, obviously. And I think with type 8s, you're pretty good with doing that, knowing what the right situation is. But one of the biggest paths for growth for type 8 is learning to experience your anger as a piece of the puzzle and not the full picture, because it's one of the important pieces. But when we kind of get all consumed with anger, it gets really hard. And so that definitely is not going to make you very vulnerable. Anger is a mechanism that protects you from being vulnerable. And so I think it's important that you um, understand that fully and tap more into your heart awareness, because you know what, in your growth you move towards the healthy traits of a 2. So we're talking about arrows right now. When you move to healthy parts of a type 2, you become more appreciative, you allow compassion and care to drive yourself, you're more open, you're more emotionally vulnerable. And I've also noticed I think more naturally about wanting to get gifts for people. I'm more thoughtful about those gifts. I'm a gift giver and I like to have meaning behind my gifts. But when I'm stressed, I'm in an unhealthy state, that's the last thing I think about. I don't want to say I'm being selfish, but I probably am, because I'm not thinking of others. Even when I try to think of others, it's really hard to tap into that. So when you move to stress, some of the unhealthy traits that you move towards is the type 5 unhealthy traits. You start to withdraw, become secretive and fearful about being betrayed. That is a big, big, big one for me. And repress emotions and increase in stubbornness. So probably the whole issue of thinking about a gift is part of the emotions being repressed. The type 5 tends to withdraw and get very analytical, and I see that in me. And so it's important, because when I realize that I'm start moving towards that, then I know I need to do some things to get myself back in health, and that I'm in an unhealthy space. But that is a powerful tool as a type 8 to be in control of your self-awareness and your emotional health. Because if you start to see yourself being secretive and withdrawing, I've seen this before in a team setting where I'm like, okay, those guys are talking about me. Or maybe they're not, but they probably are, because I've heard something. But then I come up with a whole situation. Now I know all types tend to do that anyways, but type 8s, when they're really unhealthy, can really take that to an extreme, because I personally have experienced that. So just being honest, if this is where you're at, be mindful of that. And you want to make sure that you understand these are, like I said earlier, when I learned this before, it's warning signs, it's red flags of, hey, stop, you are going into unhealth mode, because you can get even more unhealthy. And we will talk about that in another episode. So in relationships, if you seek loyalty, if you seek someone to be solid, stable, intensity and passion and direct communication, that's what 8s want in relationships. This is relationships, whether romantic, friendship, or work. This is something I definitely can say, yes, I definitely want this. I don't like people who talk around, and those ads you see and you watch the ads and they just keep dragging you on. You're going, it's been 20 minutes and you haven't even gotten to the point yet. This is driving me crazy. So you want someone, especially when you work with them, to be like that. Your partner is probably someone who's like, for example, I'm married to a 9. Loyalty, backbone. That is my husband. He's stable. He is my backbone. He is loyal. That's why type 8s really like type 6s as well, because type 6s by nature are very loyal to a fault. They'll be loyal to you even if they are mistreated. So as a type 8, I want to tell you, don't take advantage of those who are loyal to you. Be very appreciative, because that is not something that you should take advantage of. And I don't want to say abuse that relationship, but that's the word I'm thinking of, is just don't push that aside. It's very valuable and it's hard to find loyal people. So I want to make sure that you understand and appreciate that. Now, relationships will thrive when others respect and are overwhelmed by your intensity. And I've seen that 100%, because a lot of people are like, whoa, you're too much. And they can't appreciate what I have to offer. But the people that do appreciate the intensity and say, wow, you're doing so much, I want to support you, I want to be a part of this, that's how things thrive. It has to go both ways. People have to be able to appreciate you. When others are supportive, trustworthy, honest, and can hold their own, when I've had assistants who've been able to just do their own thing, has been amazing. They can do their own thing. I love it. They are supporting me. They want to support me. Those are like love language words for type 8s, is I want to support you and I want to be loyal to you. You cannot say any stronger words to a type 8 when it comes to that. So, we talked a lot about the strengths and struggles of a type 8 in general, but I also want to talk about how it looks like in your work environment for real estate. So your strengths are your natural action and initiative takers. So you naturally want to do things, accomplish things. As a realtor, of course, that's going to be a huge trait. And of course, in the YouTube world, you haven't started a YouTube channel, there you go. This is a really huge strength. You're confident and capable leaders and encourages others to be confident and capable too. So you're able to empower those around you to help them accomplish many things. That's why I'm passionate about being a coach to help other agents accomplish what they can do, because there's so much you can do. And whether the market's hot or not, a realtor can always be super successful. And I think that's really important. Loads of energy and can move the project forward well after others are tired. And that's me. I push myself, and even when I'm exhausted, I keep pushing myself, and it's more than most can handle. And so that's also why you want to be aligned with people that kind of can match your energy levels, and you don't feel like they're not pulling their weight or whatnot. But sometimes you're okay with pulling more weight because you get to be in control a little bit more. You're open to new ideas if they can prove they're better. You're always looking for better. And sometimes that's misunderstood from others as, aren't you just happy with what it is? And that's part of the push-pull. Struggles is that they need to be busy, and they can become destructive or rebellious. I actually haven't seen that personally, the rebellious side. Oh, that's a lie. I have seen rebellious side of me when I was quite young. They'll test the limits and boundaries of supervisors to see how much freedom, power, and autonomy they have. So I've also seen that in myself, and will follow a leader that they find trustworthy and respectful. This is what I've said to you before, right? So I think it's important that you understand that. Now, we talk about YouTube a lot in this, and I want to bring it up again. How type 8s can embrace vulnerability to foster authenticity. Be real on YouTube. Be yourself. That's your strength. You're able to be real. You're able to be authentic to yourself naturally. You're able to cut through the BS. So then just be honest about, the pros and cons of living in your city. People will appreciate that and come talk to you about it. Be honest and direct about what you're expecting when you're working with a client. I do that all the time, and sometimes it pushes people away, but you type 8s, you and I can relate. It's okay. We don't need to be everyone's friend. And I don't want to waste my time working with someone who's not going to appreciate the directness that I offer. And if it's not seen as a strength, then they can find another agent that is going to not be as direct. But for me, I just don't even understand how that's supposed to work, right? Now, I want you to take a look at how you can grow. I'm going to leave you with that. There's a few areas that type 8s need to grow in, and in your self-awareness journey, you should always be growing. So understand that you're wired to think people are out to get them, and it doesn't make it true. If you are sitting in a room by yourself and you haven't talked to someone for a while, it might be something that just kind of comes up as an insecurity. Another thing that you want to embrace and figure out for the goal is learn to let your compassion drive your justice fighting. This is the only way others will want to join your causes. So basically, use your passion towards something that is for the greater good and not just for your own agenda. This one's a good one. Understand that their vulnerability will take them farther than their strength when it comes to building trust. So nobody needs to see how strong you are versus how vulnerable you are. How real are you? I'm honest with people. I'm not some influencer, but I am a real person. And even through my successes, even as I obtain more YouTube subscribers, it doesn't change who I am. I'm still who I am. It doesn't change. And I don't go, oh, I am a celebrity, which I still feel is really weird. But guess what? It's really, really nice to work with YouTube clients when when they're closing, they ask you, hey, can I get a picture with you? That'll never get old with me. And trust that your way isn't the only or best way, that others bring value to the table and that they'll be better together in the long run. And I'll leave you with that one. That is a huge one. I've learned a lot about this, and there's a book called Who Not How that I highly recommend that you read, that everyone reads, because this book definitely showed me it's true. And I've experienced it myself. When there are people in your life that are worthy of your collaboration, who you're working with on a team, who bring a lot to the table and understand you, that you have high trust level for, that you can trust them. They can take your business to a whole other level. They can take your life to a whole other level. And so I would challenge you to think about that and be honest with yourself. Because I know you're probably like, I don't care. It doesn't have to be my way. But let's be honest. usually does have to be your way. So what can you do? What are some things that you can do to grow? Any questions or specific topics you'd like us to cover, please reach out to us on our website or social media channels, melodywilson.ca. Together, let's unlock the potential within you and thrive in both your real estate career and motherhood.